Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
The deserts of ancient Canaan once echoed with the chants of a people whose story, for millennia, has drifted between the cracks of the dominant historical narrative. These were the early Hebrews, tribes of Semitic-speaking pastoralists and settlers who emerged out of the ancient Near East, threading their way through the grand civilizations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Levant. For generations, historians and theologians alike have mapped their migrations, codified their scriptures, and debated their ethnic composition. Yet, one chapter of this vast epic remains underexplored and underappreciated: the story of the Black Hebrews. Often marginalized, sometimes dismissed, and frequently romanticized, the connection between ancient Hebrew peoples and the African continent is a tale steeped in faith, archaeology, exile, resilience, and identity. It is a narrative shaped not only by ancient migrations but also by colonial interpretations, cultural erasure, and the enduring quest of diasporic peoples to rediscover their ancestral roots. To trace the path of the Black Hebrews, one must first peer into the cosmopolitan and multi-ethnic world of ancient Canaan. Located at the crossroads of Africa and Asia, Canaan was not a monolithic land but a melting pot of peoples: Amorites, Hittites, Jebusites, Canaanites, and Hebrews, all interacting under the political shadow of empires such as Egypt and Assyria. The early Israelites, emerging around the late 2nd millennium BCE, were likely a confederation of tribes who settled in the highlands of Canaan. Archaeological evidence from sites like Hazor and Megiddo reveals that these early inhabitants were culturally indistinct from other Canaanite groups. Yet over time, they began to form a unique identity centered on Yahweh worship and covenantal law. The connection between these early Hebrews and Africa, especially Egypt and Nubia, is well documented in biblical and historical sources. The book of Genesis recounts the sojourn of Abraham and later Jacob's family into Egypt, where the Israelites would eventually become enslaved. Whether or not the biblical exodus occurred exactly as written, there is strong archaeological evidence of Semitic-speaking peoples entering and laboring in Egypt during the Second Intermediate Period and the New Kingdom. Wall reliefs from the tomb of Khnumhotep, circa 1900 BCE, at Beni Hassan depict Semitic traders entering Egypt with their families, donkeys, and wares. More importantly, Egypt itself was not an entirely non-black civilization. Ancient Egypt had significant contact with Nubia, and southern Egypt was heavily influenced by and intertwined with black African cultures. After the Exodus, or perhaps a series of smaller piecemeal escapes, some Israelites returned to Canaan, while others may have remained in Africa. Over time, various groups dispersed further south and west. One of the most enduring theories links this southern migration to the formation of African Hebrew communities in Ethiopia, Sudan, and West Africa. The Ethiopian Jews, or Beta Israel, offer one of the clearest and most enduring examples of a black Hebrew community with ancient roots. Their oral traditions trace their origins to the union of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, but historians generally date the emergence of the Beta Israel to the first centuries of the Common Era, possibly earlier. Though marginalized by both Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity and Rabbinic Judaism, they preserved distinct religious customs that closely mirrored ancient Israelite practices. Another lesser-known chapter in this journey is the presence of Semitic and Hebrew-speaking communities in ancient Nubia and even Central Africa. Greek and Roman historians, including Strabo and Josephus, wrote of Jewish communities in Egypt and Ethiopia, some of whom fled Roman persecution following the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. These communities, cut off from the broader Jewish world, adapted and evolved in the African context. Their legacy is echoed in the remnants of Jewish cultural elements among the Lemba people of southern Africa, who claim descent from ancient Israelites and whose oral traditions, dietary laws, and priestly class bear striking similarities to Jewish customs. In the 1990s, genetic studies reveal that a significant percentage of Lemba priests carry the Cohen modal haplotype, a Y chromosome pattern associated with the ancient Jewish priestly line. The West African context further deepens the mystery and richness of this history. During the Middle Ages, powerful empires such as Mali, Songhai, and Ghana were hubs of trade, scholarship, and cultural exchange. Timbuktu, the intellectual heart of West Africa, housed thousands of manuscripts, many of which referenced Hebrew texts, Jewish traders, and even possible Jewish communities. Oral traditions among the Yoruba, Igbo, and Ashanti peoples speak of migrations from the east and divine laws akin to the Mosaic Code. The Igbo, in particular, have long identified with ancient Israelites, pointing to circumcision practices, dietary laws, Sabbath observance, and names like Eri, a figure some equate with an early son of Gad, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. European colonialism, missionary activity, and the transatlantic slave trade all contributed to the erasure and suppression of these Hebrew-African identities. Many Africans who were taken to the Americas as slaves carried these traditions in fragments, prayers, songs, names, customs, that later re-emerged in the spiritual expressions of African American communities. In the 20th century, this reawakening took a new shape with the rise of the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. Rooted in both religious conviction and historical inquiry, these communities began reclaiming an identity they believed was taken from them, asserting that African-descended peoples were not merely converts but descendants of the original Israelites dispersed through captivity and exile. In modern times, groups such as the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, who migrated from the United States to Israel in the 1960s under the leadership of Ben-Ami Ben Israel, have attempted to bridge the historical and spiritual chasm between ancient Canaan and contemporary Africa. Though initially met with skepticism, some of these communities have gained partial recognition in Israel and continue to thrive, practicing a form of Hebraic faith that is uniquely African in expression yet firmly rooted in ancient biblical traditions. The story of the Black Hebrews is not a fringe narrative, nor is it a simple tale of religious zeal or revisionist history. It is a legitimate and compelling piece of the ancient world's complex human puzzle. From the hills of Judea to the banks of the Nile, from the highlands of Ethiopia to the savannas of West Africa, the Black Hebrews have left indelible footprints, both literal and spiritual. Their history is not merely a sidebar to Jewish history or African history, but a vital intersection of the two, reminding us that identity is fluid, heritage is resilient, and history is always more intricate than it first appears. As scholars continue to unearth manuscripts, genetic data, and oral traditions, the untold history of the Black Hebrews inches closer to the recognition it deserves, not as myth, but as memory, not as folklore, but as fact.